Hi, everybody. So let's talk a little bit about today's assignment. You guys are going to be starting the research portion, the 2.0 portion of 4FA4 today. So what I wanted to do is look a little bit at that document, and I wanted to look at the part one, which is your source analysis, and just give a little bit of a review of what we're looking for and how do we go about doing a source analysis for a article that we're going to be using for something like a research project. So remember 4FA4, you're studying invasive species. You guys previously already selected your invasive species that you're going to do. And let's go ahead and look at how do we do that credibility analysis. You're going to be looking for two credible sources for use in your research. What you're going to do is on your document, in the first box, that's where you're going to paste the URL. That's the web address. In the second box, you're going to go ahead and you're going to put the title of the source. So whatever the main title is of the page itself. Then you have to provide 3 reasons as to why your resource is credible. This is really important because we need to make sure as researchers, as presenters, that we make people know that our information is real, our information is credible, and we do that by making sure we're using credible sources. So let's go ahead and review the credibility checklist for things that we're going to look at and look for within the article to determine whether or not an article is credible before we even start to pull information from that article to use for our research. Here's our credibility checklist. These are a list of 6 things that we can use to tell if an article or a video or some piece of information is credible. Number 1, if it is written by scientific or professional authors. A reputable source will often have a link or a small biography about an author to let you know about their credentials. The second thing that you're going to look for credibility is that if the article produces sources, for example, a resource or references page or section at the bottom of the text, along with links to other credible sources. The third thing that you're going to look for is reference to data and statistics that are cited. So data and statistics that have references, and it's clear that this was taken from research and not something that was made up. Many articles, for example, from a magazine, might include quotes from experts. If they have a quote from an expert, that adds to the credibility of the article. Now, not all texts that you're going to find are going to have quotes from experts, mostly because they're written by experts themselves. And so it's not really an interview format for this particular research project. But if you do happen to find one, quotes from experts is another credible piece of an article. Another thing you're going to look for is if it's recent. Scientific information is always changing, including information regarding invasive species, as new discoveries, new methods of management and prevention, along with changing or expansion of the invasive species area or population, we need to make sure that our information is recent. It should be recent within the last 10 years, unless it is a well-established study. Last thing is the information should be able to be fact-checked. Again, this kind of goes along with the article providing sources and links. Can you find the same information? Is the other information found in other sources? This is why you provide multiple sources when doing a research project. If we have multiple credible sources, then the information in one article is going to be able to be fact-checked and backed up by lots of other information. The last thing that's on here, number 7, that's not written, is looking for the URL at the end, looking at the domain. If it is a .gov, that is a government site, which means it is managed by a government organization. For this type of project for science, usually by some kind of Department of Natural Resources or other, maybe a fisheries commission, sections of government that are the purpose of scientific research that are supported and funded by the government. The other thing you're going to look for, a lot of you will find the Michigan State University Invasive Species Index, and that's going to be a .edu. A .edu is an educational organization. Those have to be verified in order to receive that .edu. So .gov, .edu are going to be 2 things that you're going to look at in the domain as another potential source of credibility for your source. So let's take a quick look at an article to see what sources we can find. This is an article on purple loosestrife and spotted knapweed, two plants that several people have chosen for research projects. Again, if we notice right away, I notice that this is produced by Michigan State University, by their extension, and I notice right here in the URL address that is a .edu. So on my credibility document, on my 2.0 document, that would be my first bullet point. That is a .edu because this website is maintained by Michigan State University. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to look into the text a little bit further. I can look right here and I can find a couple sources of credibility before I've even read a single word of the text. I notice here that we have the authors, and the authors are linked. If I click on this author, Isabel Brandstrom, it's going to open up to her information. Isabel Brandstrom, if we go down here to her information, Isabel Brandstrom has 2 horticultural degrees, one from University of Florida and a master's degree in horticultural biology from Cornell University. She's also employed by the Michigan State University as an expert in horticulture or in plant sciences and plant management. This definitely makes her a credible source. If we go back to the article, so I'm at 2, right? This is a .edu, and I have an expert authoring this information. The next thing I look at is I have September 2nd, 2021. This article is less than 1 year old. That means that any of the information, including data and statistics inside, are going to be up to date. It's less than a year old for information. I have 3 pieces to prove credibility, but let's continue the article and see if we can find some more. As we go through the article, we can see right here that they have some information. They have some data and statistics in here. They talk about the height. They talk about where it is found. It's found in 53 different counties. That's a statistic. It tells us when it was first collected, right? That's more information. It has specific information. So data statistics, another possibility. We go down to the bottom. This is something that is really something that we're going to look for when we're looking for a credible source. It provides us a set of resources. These are the resources, the professional, credible sources that they themselves used to produce this information for us. So they provided their resources. They provided several resources to support their information. This is another really key piece of proving credibility. So this article has between 5 to 6 pieces of credibility, and this would be a wonderful resource to use for somebody who's researching purple loosestrife and spotted knapweed. So let's go back to our research document. Once we've gone in and put in the specific proof of why our sources are credible, which we're going to do for 2 articles, then we're going to go in and we're going to look at the research. We're going to start our research and begin the research questions. There are 4 research questions that you are going to be looking at. Question number 1, you're going to describe the species. So its height, its height, what it looks like, right? If it's an animal, right? We're going to be describing the animal, how long it lives, just basic descriptive information. And you're going to tell, as part of that information, is this part of a land or aquatic ecosystem? Question number 2, you're going to let me know how that invasive species arrived in Michigan. Was its arrival intentional, such as purple loosestrife that were brought in by gardeners to make their gardens beautiful? Or was it an accidental arrival, like sea lampreys that arrived when we created the channel connecting Lake Erie to other rivers, right? And we deepened that channel, and the sea lampreys were able to finally make it into the Great Lakes. In this, you're going to include a map of where it's found, and those are usually pretty readily available. Question number 3, in what ways does the invasive species negatively impact the ecosystem? You're going to provide at least 2 examples. And when you provide those 2 examples, you're going to need to explain them fully. Question number 4, what methods can be used to help manage and prevent the spread of the invasive species? What method is the most effective? In the video we watched about sea lampreys, It talked about several measures: changing the shape of the river or adding barriers so the sea lampreys can't come upstream to lay their eggs, using pheromones to draw in large numbers of sea lampreys so they could be scooped out manually, and also the use of lampricide, which is a chemical that they can put down in the riverbeds and stream beds where the immature sea lampreys live. And of course, it talked about lampricide being the most effective of those methods. So you're going to be looking at the methods that are used for your species and how they're controlled. There are usually several methods by which they try to control the species, and there is one that is most effective. And when you say which method is most effective, you should include a reason why that is the most effective method. These are the 4 questions that you are going to be answering as part of your 2.0 research for 4FA4. Good luck.